Hey, I'm Jake. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2, or PF2. I love PF2. And as a longtime player of a variety of games, including D&D, 5e and 3.5 and others, I want to share with you what I discover along the way that I love or hate, and hopefully make it fun and interesting. So today, we're going to be going over the Magus, as you can tell. And yes, I say Magus. I don't know why there's a debate about this. Who cares? Is Magus, is Magus, is Magus, whatever you call it. Some of them annoy me, but it ain't my place to call that. So we're going over the Magus because from now on Mondays, we're going to be releasing something that pertains to the build on Friday, so that you're going to get more insight about how that build is made and why. Cool. So starting with the Magus. I'm going to be going over the Magus in a way that's a little bit different than other videos that I've seen. I'm not going to be talking about the specifics of like what you get level by level, because it's boring and you can find that out yourself. And why do you need to know by watching a video, what level do I increase skills by? You can read that. But I am going to go over the main feature of the class, Spellstrike, and why that's not the main reason to take the class. I'm going to be going over the subclasses, which is the main reason to take the class. And I'm going to hit on a couple of feats, and later I'm going to do another video that goes into what the Magus multi-class is, how it pairs with other classes, and what other archetypes work well with the Magus primary class. Cool. So we're skipping the beginning part because it's stupid boring. Spellstrike. This is the whole Magus thingy. Playing a Magus is all about, I got a weapon and I got spells, and I'm going to hit you with the weapon and the spells at the same time. So usually you're going to be using a cantrip that has an attack roll that costs 2 actions or less to use, and you're going to be making a either melee or ranged strike with a weapon that then carries the spell to your enemy. And so if you hit with the weapon, the spell also affects them. It works a little bit differently when we get into saving throws and like area effect spells and stuff, so we're just talking about the attack roll spells for now. Like Acid Splash. Spellstrike takes 2 actions. So on your turn, probably the first thing you're going to do is Spellstrike. You hit, do damage, release the spell, it does damage, and the Spellstrike counts as 2 attacks for your multiple attack penalty. And so since it takes 2 actions, you can't use it on your third action because you don't have an extra action to spare, and it makes other attacks more difficult to do. So what are you going to do? Hit with a cantrip, maybe? No, you're probably going to recharge your Spellstrike, which is a 1-action activity that a Magus can do as well. So your whole turn, your actions are almost always spoken for, unless you're hasted, or you get extra actions some other way. So the Magus is a class that when you begin a battle, you really need to get yourself in a position and stay there, because otherwise you're not going to be as effective as, well, you could be, or as other classes might be. Something I like a lot about Spellstrike, actually 2 things. One, you can use a physical unarmed attack, or you can use a weapon attack. Now, the beginning of Spellstrike, I want to read this sentence to you. Keep in mind, this is flavor, as it usually is at the beginning of every ability description. You channel a spell into a punch or sword thrust to deliver a combined attack. And then we skip down to make a melee strike with a weapon or unarmed attack. That's the part that's actually the rules that matter for using a Magus. Any unarmed attack works. Doesn't have to be a punch. It can be a claw, kick in the face, tail slap, whatever. Just to make that clear. That matters. The other thing that I love is that they had enough forethought, because this class is really stupidly complicated, to put a list of cantrips and first level spells that you might want to take as a Magus, because they have spell attack rolls and they're useful. So that list is on page 40, or if you're on Archives of Nethys, it's at the top of the page of Magus. I like Archives, it's awesome. Link below. This is not sponsored. Archives of Nethys is awesome. So it starts you off with suggestions of Spellstrike options as cantrips, Acid Splash, Gouging Claw, Produce Flame, Ray of Frost, Tanglefoot, Telekinetic Projectile, and first level spells, Horizon Thunder Sphere, Hydraulic Push, Rave Enfeeblement, Shocking Grasp, and Snowball. These are awesome selections. Don't pick all of them because you need defense and utility as well. But this is great for reference. So the other main primary thing that a Magus gets besides Spellstrike is Arcane Cascade. You take an action after you've cast a spell or used your Spellstrike ability to ready yourself magically. It depends on your hybrid study. The flavor of it might be like you crouch down real low, or you focus on your enemies in the far distance, or you ready your glaive for the next strike. You gain bonuses depending on your subclass, the hybrid study. And you also do additional damage the next time you attack based on the school of the spell that you used to attack with. It's not a lot. It's like 1 or 2. So we'll go to the hybrid studies now. I'll mention my favorite. No, I'm probably going to just blurt it out as we go. So, all right, whatever. The thing to keep in mind about the Magus' spell advancement is that, as you see, it's extremely limited in that you always have 5 cantrips, but you only have 2 other spell levels that you can prepare that day besides cantrips. And it varies as you go up in level. So, like, at 3rd level, you have 1st level and 2nd level spells. But at 5th level, you lose 1st level spells and get access to 3rd level spells. And it keeps going up like that in staggered formation for the rest of your career. I guess it could be useful for, like, upcasting lower level spells, and that's primarily what people would use it for. But personally, I like to use just cantrips for offensive abilities, unless there's an offensive spell that's like so BS or battlefield controlling that doesn't work with Spellstrike anyway. And then that would be my 4th level, one of my 4th level spells. Otherwise, I use all the spell slots for utility, control manipulation, that kind of thing, instead of attacking. Maybe a little defense. There are 5 subclasses to Magus. Inexorable Iron is the first one. What that does is, when you enter Arcane Cascade stance, and at the start of each of your turns while you're in that stance, if you're wielding a melee weapon in 2 hands, you gain temporary hit points equal to half your level every turn. This is amazing for a tank, or really any melee person. This makes up for not getting quite as many hit points as a fighter or barbarian. If you're going to be in melee range, this is a great option. Granted, you don't have a shield, you can't use a shield, but you could have a weapon with a parry trait on it, especially if, like, you take multi-class archetype inventor and create your own weapon. But we're not talking about archetypes today, except when I blurt them out. Inexorable Iron is my favorite for their conflux spell. The conflux spells are just focus spells for this class. Each class has their own focus spells called different things. This is just a focus spell for Maguses. So the focus spell for the Inexorable Iron is Thunderous Strike. You hit enemies in a cone in front of you. You do a little bit of damage, but you can knock them prone. Also great for tanking. Or just because you like giving negative conditions to your enemies, which is great too. Why wouldn't you do that? The next hybrid study, Laughing Shadow, which people talk about a lot because it sounds really exciting and fun to do. And it is, but there aren't a lot of roles that you can take in combat with it. It's not like you're a backup tank with it. You are basically a teleporting rogue Magus, which is totally fun. Don't get me wrong. Anyway, so for the Laughing Shadow, the bonus that you get from being in your Arcane Cascade stance, so you have to take that action after you've cast a spell or used a spell strike. You enter Arcane stance. You gain a plus 5 foot status bonus to your speeds, or a plus 10 foot bonus if you're unarmored entirely. Again, not a tank. If you have a free hand while in the stance and are attacking a flat-footed creature, you increase the extra damage that you would do from 3 to 5. So everybody gets a little bit of extra damage in Arcane Cascade stance. I said that before. Theirs just goes up a little bit. Or if you have weapon specialization or greater specialization, it goes up more. You have to have one of your hands completely free, and the other hand, a one-handed weapon. So, okay. That's just a rogue to me. But the conflux spell, the focus spell, is Dimensional Assault, which takes one action, you teleport half your speed which is increased because of your Arcane Cascade stance. So with the right ancestry or general feat at the beginning, I know that's a 3rd level thing usually, you could be getting, let's see, 30, 40, you could move 20 feet with one action, teleporting, so you don't get anybody to hit you reactively. Reactive strikes, that's what they're calling them now. Nobody can use a reactive strike on you on the way there, because you're not there. At the end of that teleport, you get to make a melee strike to one creature in range. So you really are just teleporting around the battlefield, smacking people in the face. It's totally a fun feel. You just aren't very protected, and you want to attack people that are flat-footed. Or off guard is the new term. The next hybrid study, Sparkling Targe. It always seems to me like there should be a T at the end of that. It's just a word I'm not familiar with. I like it though. Targe. Klingon puppy, right? Oh, that's a Targ. The Sparkling Targe is all about having a shield. It doesn't really care if you have any weapon or no weapon in your other hand, or if you're only using a shield to smack people with. You just have to have a shield. As part of taking this hybrid study, you get the shield block general feat, which is really neat by itself. Like, just by taking your subclass, you have extra protection. When you're in Arcane Cascade stance with your shield raised as a Sparkling Targe hybrid study Magus, your circumstance bonus to AC from your shield also applies to your saves against spells and other magical effects. In addition, any damage you take as a result of a spell or magical effect while you're in Arcane Cascade can trigger your shield block reaction even if the damage isn't physical. When blocking damage in this way, the hardness of the shield increases. This is amazing to protect you or allies, depending on your feats. There is a lot of room for optimization with this one. I know I said I wasn't going to go into archetypes, but of course I lied already, so I may as well keep lying. So, Sparkling Targe, of course, works really well with a Bastion. It would also work well with the Psychic Tangible Dream option as an archetype, because it gives your shield spell extra capability, and you can also put it up on friends. So this is a very defensive character if you want to optimize for that. Either way, when you are attacked, the Sparkling Targe's abilities weirdly also work if you're using the shield spell. Like, you just know how to protect yourself better with magical and non-magical protective thingies. I really want to talk about this one in particular when we go to the Feats video. So their conflux spell, their focus spell, is Shielding Strike, which basically means you attack somebody, and as part of that attack, you raise your shield for their next attack. So, cool. You just save an action, basically. It's not great. I know it's not all like flashy and magical, but you do save an action, and you're more protected. This subclass is all about saving your ass, and it does it really well and fun. Obviously, I like them. The next hybrid study, Starlit Span, is the only specifically ranged option for Magus. I mean, ranged weapon focus option for Magus. What do you get from your Spellstrike? When you use Spellstrike, you can make a ranged weapon or a ranged unarmed strike, as long as the target is within the first range increment of your ranged weapon or ranged unarmed attack. You can deliver the spell even if its range is shorter than the range increment of your ranged attack. So it basically just helps you be a better ranged attacker. But the cool part, the conflux spell, Shooting Star, you shoot your enemy and it lights up like a laser, like you have a laser sight on them, or sparkles, however you want to flavor it. And so other people that are using ranged attacks on your team, hitting them, have less cover penalties. Like, you're saying, hey, he's right there, he's got an arrow sticking out of his head, you hit him. And they do, and everybody's happy. Yay! I do like this, it's cool. One thing I forgot is using the Shooting Star focus spell for Starlit Span Magus also ignores the target's concealment, and it reduces their cover by 1 degree. For you as well, not just for your allies. So on the strike that you use to target the enemy, that attack hits them more easily, which could crit them more easily depending on what they are using for protection. If it's just concealment and cover, that's pretty cool. Anyway, I'll stay on task, I guess, somewhat. Okay, the Twisting Tree hybrid study is the most universally useful and has a lot of popularity online. People like the Twisting Tree, and I think it's because you can essentially add almost any weapon trait to your weapon, so you can adapt to any fight, any situation you can take advantage of, so you're always about the same level of quality and effectiveness. That's probably why. I don't like it because I think it's boring. Not the flexibility, that's cool, that makes it more useful, but I'm all about flavor. And it doesn't have like this amazing magical meteor strikes follow your arrow and it lights up the target, or there's an explosion, or you teleport. The conflict spell I'll cover first. The focus spell, Spinning Staff, takes an action and you hit 2 enemies. Yes, that's technically useful. Yes, this is really good for optimizing the numbers in combat. If that's your thing, Twisting Tree is probably a good choice for you, because it has a lot of flexibility with the... I'll explain the features. While you wield the staff in one hand, the staff adjusts in shape and weight, gaining the Agile trait and increasing its damage die size to 1d6. While you wield the staff in both hands, it lengthens, twists, and reshapes, gaining the Parry, Reach, and Trip traits. While you're in Arcane Cascade stance, you can interact or release to change your grip on the weapon as a free action when you strike with your staff, including strikes made in a spell strike. This happens before you roll your attack roll. You can also interact to change your grip on the staff as a free action triggered at the end of your turn. So as you can tell, there's just a lot of flexibility with changing how much damage you do, how many attacks you can make, and what kind of special traits that you have, including the parry, which is nice for protection. Yeah, it can be a lot of fun for people who just want to do those maneuvers in combat. I like the flashy magic shit. That's just me. Twisting Tree is truly very useful. I do want people's opinions on how Twisting Tree is useful, as in what specific roles can you fulfill in combat with Twisting Tree that you can't with others, or that it does just as well as others. For example, can you be a really good tank with Twisting Tree and I'm just not thinking about it? Comments, please. I'm going to hit on a couple of feats. The first feat, people might not need to hear this, but I did. I had to figure it out myself, because apparently sometimes I'm dumb. We expect things to work the way that we think they should instead of reading well. I didn't analyze this enough. So, a first level Magus feat, Arcane Fists. The damage die for your fist attack changes to 1d6 instead of 1d4. You don't take the normal -2 circumstance penalty when making a lethal attack with your fist or any other unarmed attack. Your unarmed attack also gains the Arcane trait. All your unarmed attacks gain the Arcane trait, making them magical. At 5th level, you also gain the critical specialization effect of unarmed attacks in the brawling group and weapons in the brawling group. You don't have to take this to be able to spell strike with your fists, or claws, or tails. I thought you did. I don't know why I even thought that. It doesn't even say that. I think it was the flavor text from the spell strike, saying, you can punch people with magic. But, again, that's flavor. And in the actual definitions of the game rules, it says that you can use unarmed attacks. I mean, in the body of Spellstrike, it says you can use unarmed attacks. So you don't have to take Arcane Fists to be able to take monk levels and use your monkery with them, with your spells. Magus also has a couple of feats that are just bizarre. I mean, everybody does, but they have a couple of feats that allow you to raise a tome. It's called Raise a Tome. Obviously, it's on the screen. But you can raise a book to defend yourself, and while it's raised, you read it to recall knowledge on the guy hitting you. I don't know about you, but that's some badassery to be that calm in combat. You're like, see Appendix 6. Hold on just a moment, please. Page 132. Oh, too far. Back one page. Oh! I have to use fire. Okay. If you use shield block, you can also use the book to take damage for you, like a shield. The problem is, the book can be destroyed, and the book, in order to get that recall knowledge check in combat, it has to be a book that's on the topic of the kind of creature you're fighting. And if you're using a book that's useful in combat to recall knowledge on, and you're using it as a shield, and it gets destroyed, you can't use this again until you get another book that does the same thing. So it's risky, but so flavorful. Later on, there's also a feat that allows you to magically combine a book and a shield, so that while you're raising your shield, you can be reading the book. So basically, it's a better defense. You get the defense of the shield and the benefit of reading the book for recall knowledge checks or whatever other benefits while you're raising your shield. There are a couple of other things I want to point out to keep in mind about the Magus. One, if you are using this in melee combat and you need to cast a spell, you're still casting a spell in combat. So you still are going to get hit by people that have the ability to hit somebody and interrupt their spellcasting. They do have a feat that counteracts that called Steady Spellcasting, but it's at level 4. I would probably take that even if my GM never did that to me before, because some point it's going to happen and it could save somebody's life in your party. The other thing is, we've talked so far about spells that have an attack roll. You can also use spells that don't have an attack roll that require a saving throw, but you have to take Expansive Spellstrike at level 2 first. When you do, you can hurt yourself with it. So you have to be careful about placing. Like, if you... What? Was that to tell me that you were coming up? Kitty yoga. If your attack, your strike, with one of these spells that requires a saving throw, critically fails, you completely lose the spell, it doesn't go off, there's no effect. Also, if you hit with your weapon, and you are using a spell that requires a saving throw, they still get a saving throw. So it's sort of like they get 2 layers of defense. So really be careful about which spells you choose for this. Oh, if the spell lets you select a number of targets, you can only select 1? Okay. If the spell has an area, this is the dangerous part. If the spell has an area, the target must be in that area. A burst is centered on a corner of the target's square, or the square corner closest to the center of the target if the target is large or larger. You choose the corner if more than one is eligible. So, if it's a fireball, you're eating fire now. However, if it's a cone or a line, it emits from you and must include the target. Those are great choices for spells like Cone of Cold and Lightning Bolt. I would probably never memorize a burst spell like Fireball. Because it's inefficient. Yeah, it could look cool, but unless you have resistance or immunity to fire and your teammates aren't near you, then you're just blowing yourself up. Some people have said that the Magus is like the Hexblade Warlock or Hexadin, and other people have said it's not. It really depends on what you mean by the Hexadin or the Hexblade Warlock from 5e. It depends on what you enjoyed about it. It is the only class that innately combines physical strikes with spells. And so, in that, taken at base, yes, it's just like them. In that one way. Still, if you're moving from 5e and you really want that feel, you're going Magus. Also, I have things to talk about the multiclass. We'll save that for later. Okay. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate your patience with my excitement. I really like this class. I want to include it in more class builds, but you will be seeing this class in a class build at the end of the week, in just a few days. If you have any comments about what kind of feature you would like to see next on a class build, like if it's not a class, maybe you want to hear more information about the archetype or the skill feats or the general feats or the ancestry feats before I go ahead with the next build. So then I know how to focus on that, and I will. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, make a comment, share. For the algorithm gods, we must appease them, or they'll take our house and kitties. Thank you to our lovely patrons. I am grateful for each and every one of you. Especially GM Rufus and Arrow Lord. You guys have blown me away. That's a weird phrase. You've surprised me. I appreciate you. Blown me away. Our top level patrons get one-on-one time with me, and I get to make creations for them every month, whatever they want, basically. And we have private chats. There are videos that are just for them, including psychological breakdowns of how to communicate well in a party. Fun stuff. At least to me, because I'm weird.
Red dice.
Oh. And patrons also get dice every month. Random dice, but they're always cool. Look behind me. Cool dice. Woo! So if you want to see the Magus archetype and the archetypes for Magus video, it'll be in the description in a link when it comes out. And similarly, if you want to see the build video that this video is based on, so it includes the Magus, that link is also going to be in the description once it's ready, once it's live. If you want to see the series I have on archetypes, there. And here is what YouTube suggests you watch after this one. I'm sure it's really good.